All right. Well, this is the fun part of the journey for anytime I'm working with EOS clients is that you're not ready to graduate and really take this and run with this on your own. And so I want to give you the tools. We've done this a whole bunch of times together. All this stuff is going to sound very familiar, but I wanted to give you kind of a resource that you can use as you go start to implement this on your own. You can watch this video ahead of time and take it in yourself. You can feel free to try and watch this throughout the session and kind of have me lead each session for you. Do it however you want. You guys will become pros at this. If you got any questions, of course, let me know. So first up, I've got this tracking document that I generally use. It gives a little bit of the agenda, the objectives agenda, and then check-in. This is the first part about what you're doing. Remember, 3 objectives that we always want to leave with. We want to make sure that we are on the same page. We have a fully clear, aligned vision. We want to make sure that we have an absolutely rock solid plan that we are crystal clear on for the next 90 days of how we're going to start making meaningful progress towards that vision. And then we want to make sure that we have all of our key issues resolved. Doesn't mean we need to address every single issue today, but anything that is key, I want to make sure that we address today at our quarterly planning session. So let's make sure that we achieve those 3 objectives. The way that we do this is through our agenda. Start by checking in just a second. Those 3 questions to the right. We'll then review our prior quarter. We'll go through our VTO and just kind of make sure that we're in alignment with all the vision stuff. If there's anything that needs to be done, kind of learned, reorganized, we need to revisit our accountability chart or our scorecard or something like that. EOS tools is a great section that we put in here so that you can, of course, kind of take some time to proactively think about those things from quarter to quarter. If there's nothing that needs that type of energy or attention, then you can just skip on to rocks. Rocks is when we start moving into the planning. So the first part of the day is all about exfoliating the issues, bringing things to the surface, giving us a lot of things to work with when we start to get to the planning. And then the second half of each session for quarterly planning is where we start putting all those things together and turning ideas into action items with expected results into definitions of success. So that's our agenda. We'll start here by checking in just a second. I want 1 personal best, 1 business best. I want updates of everything that's working and everything that's not working. Don't limit yourself to 1 here. And then I want to know your expectations for today. This acts as a measure of accountability as we're getting through these sessions, making sure that we're staying on point. Also make sure that what you want to accomplish is in line with what we're going to be doing. So, all right, I'll let you take just a couple minutes to check in now, and then we will start moving on to reviewing our prior quarter. All right, so once you take a little bit of time to give everybody 5 quiet minutes, you can go through and share those together as a group. You can see here's this document. I'm going to share this with you as well that will walk you through all these things. So where you are, objectives, agenda, kind of check 5 quiet minutes. And then if you want to give context ever to why we do the quarterly sessions, there's really 3 things. We're trying to just reinforce this 90-day world. It's a really good cadence of having goals and objectives and things that we can do that are there's enough time that we can do meaningful things, but it's not so long that if we're misguided or we have a bad quarter that we feel like we're going out of business. And so it's a really good cadence. The second thing is it really just helps us to refocus on those 6 key components and making sure that we're identifying where we're healthy and unhealthy and putting the right systems and action items in place to make sure that we're as healthy as we can possibly be. And then this is just great for team building. It's great for us as a leadership team to create deeper trust, deeper relationships. And of course, we know trust is the foundation of that results pyramid, right? Talk about trust leads to healthy conflict, leads to commitment, leads to accountability. Accountability leads to key results. All right. Once we get through that, everybody will go through. They'll share their everything that their updates, their best, and their expectations. We then share our expectations. We just want to make sure that as a facilitator that everybody is open and honest. You guys should remember that, but we just want to encourage and remind everybody of that. All right, then we're going to hand out the rock sheet and we're going to start reviewing all the things. We'll look at the top. This is where we start to look at our revenue, profit, and measurable projections. We want to measure against those. Then we will go through the list. We'll look at all of our rocks. We'll start with company rocks, move on to individual rocks. If you're a team that separates those, we'll start with company rocks. And at this point, we no longer need to answer if we are on track or off track. We are simply answering, are we either done or not done? This is now binary and it should be complete. The entire rock as written should be complete in order to say it's done. If any part of the rock was incomplete or not done, the rock is incomplete. I just want to be very clear there that it is either done or not done. That is in its entirety. All right, we'll go through, we'll list all of the company rocks and the individual rocks, just kind of keeping score. We want to assign a percentage of completion to this as well. So we will have a company rock completion. We'll have individual rock completion. Then we want to, we always talk about the goal is 80%. So you'll hear me say, 100% is great, but 80% is really what we're striving for. If we consistently are hitting 100% of our rocks, we're probably not shooting big enough. If we're consistently coming in under 80%, we are either likely biting off way more than we can chew. We're like delusional, or we really struggle with accountability. That's where I generally find that this lies, is that people kind of get really excited about setting rocks at the beginning of the quarter, and then they forget to look at them for the next 60 days. And then 30 days before we are supposed to meet again, all of a sudden it becomes a scramble mode. You're probably too far behind. We throw it to the side. We end up showing up incomplete. So I think it's an accountability issue generally more than a delusion issue, but just be aware those are generally the two reasons. Open it up for discussion. The discussion should focus around not like why an individual rock was met or missed, but more like what can we extract from that? What are the lessons that we can learn from these last 90 days that we can carry forward for the rest of the time that we're running EOS within our business? And then assign a grade. And this is going to be A through F, 1 through 10, however you want to do this. The idea here is generally you're listening for the highest score and the lowest score. And if they're too far apart, more than like a full letter grade or more than like two numbers, if somebody's at 5 and somebody's at 9, generally I like to kind of figure out which one of those feels more out of line with kind of the rest of the group. Maybe everybody's coming in at 8 to 9. If there's 1, 5, I usually like to open it up. What do you feel like was missing or could have been better? If there's one person who seems delusionally optimistic, generally I'll offer, kind of ask like, what are the things they felt like really went well, or, and just kind of open up that discussion. Questions, comments, concerns, confessions, anything that we want to bring to the table. We want to have an open and meaningful discussion. But once we start to feel it just discussing fun things, then we can start to wrap up. We'll put a bow on that. We've now reviewed our prior quarter. We're now going to move on to our VTO review. So again, we're going to hand out our VTO. Here's if rocks are not done or somebody leaves, like there's some things that you guys can do there. Generally, it's a good time for a break. Great. Now we're going to go through the VTO. I generally start by giving a little bit of context on each of these, right? So when we get to core values, I'm going to say core values are a set of underlying set of guidelines or principles. They're going to define who you are as an organization. They're a lot like your DNA in the sense that they describe what you look like to anybody externally or internally, but they also create kind of this, they're unique to you. Nobody else will share these same core values as you for any other organization. We'll go through those core values. Then we like to ask, are these the right core values? Are we hiring, firing, reviewing, rewarding, and recognizing people around these core values? And are there any people that we want to call out as maybe not the right people in our organization based on kind of a core value misalignment, right? That's ultimately what we want to do. Culture is created at the fringes. All right, we can go through each one of these. We want to kind of set the table to the core focus next, and then we want to basically make sure, is this the right purpose, cause, or passion? Is this the right niche? If there's anything that needs to be kind of readjusted, we can do it at that point. We'll go through all of these within our VTO: 10-year target, marketing strategy, and again, I've got some questions. You don't need to ask every single one of these questions every time. These are kind of more prompts. They're things that kind of should help you. These are the things you should be listening for throughout this. And remember, as the facilitator of this, you're asking a lot of questions and the answers are coming into the group, but you're hearing what are things that are basically, how are we uncovering ideas, opportunities, and efficiencies, frustrations, all these things that you're hearing, we're jotting down along the way so that when we get back to the issues, we can make sure that we surface these and turn these into some sort of a solution or some sort of a discussion topic to IDS at some later point. So we're hearing everything that's going on, but we're also listening in a very different way that when we say, are these the things that are we laser focused on that target market? And maybe the answer is no. That's an issue that I may jot down and just want to make sure that it somehow gets resolved in some of the planning that we're doing elsewhere, or gets added to, kind of resurfaced as something for you guys to discuss later. All right, so you go through all this stuff. We get through the issues list. We've reviewed our entire VTO. Everybody's on the same page. We're crystal clear. We now have accomplished our very first objective. When we get to the end of this, we now can say that we are in rock solid alignment. Everybody's on the same page. We have a clear company vision that's established through the check-in that we've done at the first part, as well as the VTO. All right, these are things that you guys can do. These are kind of like little notes. This is anything that you see like pages is reference to the leadership team manual. So there's notes in here. You guys can go through this. I'm trying to give you kind of a high level and walk you through this. All right. So we will, what's this? Start with the brave, go left, add all the issues to the issues list. This is just kind of like, it's oftentimes good to do a brain dump before you break. It says like, great. Anything that we kind of uncovered there that wasn't like formally turned into an issue, go ahead and get that onto a piece of paper. And if there's anything that you wrote down or want to share, then we can do that. All right. EOS Toolbox, I kind of talked about, the different ways that we can use this earlier on. And then this is the kind of the first time. You guys won't need to worry about this section very much, but it is in here. It's how to kind of explain the toolbox and all this stuff. We go through that generally like the first session, the very first time we do it quarterly. And then I fill in different parts of the EOS Toolbox or some EOS tools throughout that section as we continue on through our journey. All right. After EOS tools, we're now moving into the planning. This is where we can clearly start to shift our brain away from just like exfoliating and identifying issues and into the actual solving. So now we need to start thinking very tactically. What's the strategic plan that helps us get to what we want to accomplish? How do we define success? How do we start turning these issues into action items that will clearly help us to get to those desired results in a proactive manner? And so this is where the work starts to get fun and interesting, and we start to pull everything together. If done right, you should have a list of maybe 5 to 25 issues that you've heard kind of throughout the day, things that are popping up in the check-in, things that are popping up throughout the as we're reviewing our rocks or the prior quarter, as we're looking at the VTO. Just be constantly, and you'll get good at listening. This is where oftentimes it helps to have a facilitator who's not also a participant, because you can listen with a different set of ears where you're really trying to hear what's the pulse of the company right now, right? Not just what are the things and that like kind of the symptoms that keep getting talked about, but like what's the root cause that's causing those? And that's what you really want to be listening for. With that, we can start to pre-populate an issues list, and we turn it over to everybody on the leadership team to take whatever preparation they did ahead of time, plus whatever has been kind of jarred loose from the conversation today, plus any ideas that they have that they think would be really strong, get all of those out of their head and onto a piece of paper and start to organize essentially an issues list. So the instructions here are take 5 to 7 quiet minutes, get everything out of your head and onto paper, ideas and opportunities. We're looking for inefficiencies and imperfections. Those are going to be kind of internal. And then like challenges or obstacles. These are oftentimes like external factors that we need to be considering. And so ideas, opportunities, these are like the growth, the progress, opportunities within our business. The imperfections and inefficiencies generally are kind of these annoyances that take place internally. And then the obstacles and challenges are things that maybe are external. I start to think of these at the individual, the team, and the company level. And so there's kind of this like 3x3 matrix, right? Where you start thinking of like ideas and opportunities, obstacles and challenges, and then imperfections and efficiencies. Those are kind of like the top columns. And then down the side, you have this like company at the top level, team at the middle level, and then individual at the bottom level. And you can start thinking about like, what are the personal inefficiencies I have? What are the team challenges that we're going to face, right? And so you start to look at all these. You can kind of matrix these things together. It's a good mental model if you find difficulty extracting these issues either earlier in the session or throughout this part. The goal is at the end of this 5 to 7 quiet minutes, we then get all of these on the whiteboard. We just go one person to the next, left to right, and we just get all the ideas in a list. We are not filtering at this point. The goal isn't to filter, it's just to get ideas onto the whiteboard. And once we have that, we should have generally between like 20 and maybe 50 like issues that are on this. As you get better at teams, oftentimes you kind of pre-filter. Not the healthiest thing, but sometimes it is good if you know that it's not going to be something that we need to discuss today, to kind of leave it on a different issues list, but making sure that it lands somewhere, but making sure that we have a really, really healthy list. When we look at this list, once we have all the issues on the whiteboard or on the spreadsheet, we should look at that. And when we read through all of these, you guys will notice that I generally do this. Once we get the collective list, I always try and read through it. And I'm asking you guys at that point to listen for what are the ones that jump out as yes, that feels more important than the next one, right? Because we want to start going through that keep, kill, combine exercise. So the goal is get a big list, 20 to 50 up there. And then we need to whittle it down probably to like 10 or so that are real potential company rocks. And then from that list of 10, we can actually start to figure out what's the most important one from this list. We then start to pull these off one at a time and turn them into action items. Now, before we do this, so we need to then just kind of set the table at the top of the rock sheet, right? And so if we look at kind of this as the rock sheet, then what we want to do is, we'll go here. We've got our rocks here. And so we just want to set our future date. This is an important thing to do. So we know like how much time do we have to accomplish what we need to. Pull out your calendars. It's the only time that we pull out the phones during the session. Let's find a date that works for everybody. We can lock this date in. We then want to lock down what are our revenues and what are our profit goals or targets. Generally, this is going to be like a year-to-date target based on the most recent completed books that should be available at the future date. So if it's July 15th is the date and we take generally 30 days to close our books, then we know that we probably won't have June books closed, but we can probably have May books closed by July 15th. we would say, what are our financials going to be through the end of May, right? If it takes us less than 15 days to get those done, we should have June completed by the July 15th meeting. Then we could probably say, what do we want our revenues and profits to be through the first 2 quarters of this year, right? And then whatever your measurables are, just plug those in here. And then now we have this top part filtered out. We can go back to this issues list and we can start looking at all these issues. You guys have seen how I do it. I like to do it with numbers. Then we can kind of resort them. It helps to bracket them in the right ways. And then we just look at that list, all the ones that are numbered that are potential company rocks. We say, what's the most important one? We read off what those are. We try and identify what's the actual thing that we're trying to solve, either the idea, the opportunity, the challenge, the obstacle, the imperfection, the annoyance. What is it that we want to solve? Then we want to start to try and turn that into a way that we define success. Now, when we get to rocks, this is a real skill that you guys will get good at and probably are already pretty good at over time, but making sure that anybody in the organization could look at that rock and without any additional context should know exactly what's being done and exactly how to measure if and when it has been done, right? A binary outcome without any subjectivity or any ambiguity as to what's being done. That is a really, really good rock. I generally like to ask the question, either what is a way that we can absolutely know that this has been done? Like by this has either been done or not. Have you submitted your taxes? Your taxes are either done or they're not done, right? Did you submit them by April 15th? If they're in the mail postmarked, yes. If not, no. That is very binary. I love writing rocks that have binary outcomes that are really easy to tell if they've been done or not done. If that's not possible, then sometimes like sales, like we just need to drum up sales and we need a lot of ideas and we need to somehow get like 15 new prospects in the pipeline. That's how we define success. But I don't know what the binary actions are or the set of steps that are going to get there. We can then turn a rock into something that defines what success looks like at the end. So it's not necessarily a binary outcome, but it's a desired outcome of or it's not a binary event, but it's a desired outcome that starts to paint that picture. And so I usually think of really good rocks as falling into one of these two things. And with the desired outcomes, it can be based on one of two things. Either a fixed set of inputs where you have control. So if we want 15 new client meetings, we may have to say, we figure that our conversion rate is 15%. We need to have 100 meaningful outreaches to expect that we could get 15 customer meetings. So we can put a little bit more in our control by saying, hey, let's focus on 100 meaningful outbound interactions as opposed to the 15 meetings. Because if we do that, whether it lands at 13 or 18, if we could just make that a habit and keep repeating it, over time, we're going to be much healthier. But if we could sometimes put in 100 meaningful calls, only end up with 13, I would hate to consider that a failed rock, given that we were just misaligned on kind of like what our conversion rates were. And now the issue or the next rock or the follow-up action becomes about increasing conversion rates, not increasing outbound sales efforts, right? And so we just want to target the right thing, define success, binary if it can. If not, we need to figure out, do we want to define the inputs that should lead to success or how we want to define success at the end of the quarter, what that should look like. That's going to be where we're going to get to a really good way that we can put rocks together. All right. Keep, kill, combine, build out the rock sheet, set your future date, profits, all this, make up smart. And then at the very end, you should be able to look at that list and go, if we accomplish this, this, and this by this date, was it a great quarter? And this should feel meaningful. When you read through those rocks, it should feel like it was a great quarter. If it is, great. We may be ready to move on. We'll go back to that issues list and we just kind of figure out, does this feel full? Does it feel complete? Does it feel like it handles all the biggest things? Does it feel like it would be a huge win if we accomplish this by the end of the year? And when we look at our issues list, is there anything on there that feels like it can't wait, right? And if it can't wait, we probably still need to keep adding rocks, figuring out how that's going to, work within our, that delusional type of thing, right? Making sure that we're not missing rocks because we're too delusional. And so you just got to kind of figure this out together as a leadership team, make sure it feels full, but also make sure the issues list doesn't feel like it's got a whole bunch of unresolved issues that need to be addressed this quarter. All right, and then we're going to clean up the laundry list, where we are going to, you can create individual rocks. Some teams do this, some teams don't. But if you do individual rocks, this is a great time to then look at the remaining board of all those issues that like we either killed or didn't get addressed, in some way. They're still unresolved up there. Anybody can start to pull those off. So generally, we would say take 5 quiet minutes. If you own a company rock, bring that onto your sheet first. And then take any other individual rocks that you want to commit to getting done this quarter, turn them into something that's as smart as you can for now, And then let's go through, we're going to share those as a group. And when we're sharing those as a group, we're basically listening for two things. Number one, are these the right rocks? Like, are these the things that we should be focusing on? And then number two, are these smart? That's that idea that like it's either binary or it has a desired outcome that we can measure against, that we've defined success or we've defined an input or an action that is clearly done or not done, just so that we can really keep you on track. But usually if we see words like improve or I don't know, like strengthen or things like that, those are not binary. Those are not smart. Better customer service, increased sales, more customers. Those things are just really, really poorly written rocks that will almost never get you the results that you want, because there is no actual commitment of what you're going to do, which means it's very difficult to hold you accountable, which means you lack the key results, right? And so it just climbs up that pyramid, but having clarity around those is really, really important. All right. Then we start to assign the homework. This is all about getting the individual rocks to the rock sheet owner, making sure that you're bringing your rocks to your next level 10, all that stuff. So just make sure that we kind of tidy all that stuff up. And then we will move into the IDS mode. And so, sorry, I should say we clean up the laundry list. I started talking about that. But so once we go through and we look at basically the rocks, we feel like this is a great quarter, right? We've asked this question here. If we accomplish this, was it a great quarter? Yes. We then go through, we can claim individual rocks if we want. We take 5 quiet minutes. We share those together as a group. We ask if they're smart and they're the right rocks, and then we go through and clean up the laundry list. Remember, I always say, or I say, everything finds a home. So at this point, we can start saying, this was wrapped up in a company rock. This was wrapped up in an individual rock. If it's neither of those, then we either say, is this something that we can turn into a to-do immediately? Does somebody want to claim it, put an action on it, set a due date, and we just add it as a to-do? We can cross it off our list. We'll check back in on the due date, make sure it's been done. Is this something that we want to add to our short-term issues list, where we don't know what the solution is, the to-do is, but we should discuss this. It's something that we can definitely bring into this quarter, even though it's not a rock. Then you want to move that to your short-term issues list, and that will be discussed at an upcoming level 10. If it's a rock, but it's not a rock for this quarter, we don't need to look at that at all until the next time we get together. We park that on our long-term issues list. We don't need to be thinking about our long-term issues list throughout the quarter. These are big, chunky initiatives that just can't be done through a IDS at a level 10, turned into a series of to-do items with all the rocks that we've already committed to. And so the idea here is that we just want to make sure that you are, if it's a bigger term thing, we just park it on the long-term issues list. It gets revisited, but never has to be thought of when we can't really actually do anything about it. And then the final place that you could do is you could say, I want to IDS that today. And we would make sure that we discuss that issue, find some sort of resolution and some action items tied to it before we leave the room today. So everything that hasn't been already turned into a company or individual rock, we're just going to go through one at a time. Either it becomes a short-term issue, it can become a to-do, a short-term issue, a long-term issue, or something that we want to IDS today. And at that point, everything has a home. Take a picture or put it on a document, record it in some way so that you have a snapshot of that, and then we can start to move on to the IDS. And so anything we define that we want to IDS, we're going to take the time, IDS the issue, document any to-dos, and just keep repeating this until you're either out of time or out of issues or out of energy, however you guys want to define done. And then you guys can kind of pack it up. Then we're moving on to next steps and conclude. This is all pretty simple. We just want to make sure any to-dos that we're committed to, we want to review those. We want to see who's updating the VTO, make sure you have everything that you need, make sure you've identified if there's upcoming meetings or dates. This is just like organizing everything together. If you guys are going to do a state of the company, if you guys come out of quarterly meetings and have an announcement to the company, figure out when you're going to do that, how you're going to do that, and who's going to do that. And then from there, we're going to move on to conclude. This conclude, actually, we have a tab for this. Let's see, over here, you can, and it's just these 3 questions. Feedback, how are you feeling? Like, how'd you feel just overall about the session today? Were your expectations met? And then rate the meeting on a scale of 1 to 10 is gonna just kind of keep you as a level of accountability. What felt good, what didn't, were expectations met? And from there, you can wrap up. The easy work is done. The hard work ensues over the next 3 months. What I would say is, one of the things that's really important, make sure you set that future date when you get to the rocks. Make sure you hold that sacred. This is where I see teams go off the rails, is when they lose me and they don't have to talk to me about changing a date, and they can just kind of do that internally. It gets pushed back for 2 weeks. Then it starts to create bad habits that these are movable meetings. They continue to get pushed back, pushed out, and then all of a sudden they just start to fall off, and EOS starts to erode within the organization. And so just stay disciplined on this. When you lose me, you lose a little bit of an accountability partner actively involved in this process. I'm still here for you as much as you guys need me, but make sure that you guys now step into that accountability role, keeping everybody on track. I'm always here for you if you need me, all right? Good luck with everything. And congratulations on your promotion, your graduation from me as your implementer. I'm always around to come back if you need me. All right. Cheers, guys.